Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, guys! If you're getting this on the day it comes out, then it should be the day before Christmas Eve. How exciting. But before we crack on with Christmas, we've got the Guaranteed Fitness podcast intro.
Welcome to the Guaranteed Fitness podcast of awesomeness, where you'll discover hints, tips, and ideas on how to transform your lives and bodies, and how to become what you always wanted to be, with your hosts, Chief Ninjas, John the Guru Hall, and Matthew Can't Spell Nicholson.
Okay, guys, right, let's crack on. So we've got some exciting stuff planned for you on today's podcast. First thing we've got coming up is the question of the week.
Ask John and Matt.
Right, Matt, this week's question of the week is from Tony Fitzgerald, one of our ninjas over at Guaranteed Fitness Macclesfield. For those of you that don't know Tony is a mother of two young daughters, wife of Chris, who comes down to Guaranteed Fitness as well. And Tony's transformation this year has been insane. Tony is in truly fantastic shape now. Lost any body fat she could possibly lose, looking amazing. Really tone-defined look, so she's looking great. Tony's question is about carbs, the good ones we should be eating, and she says she found this confusing at first.
Cool, well, if some of you came to my carb seminar a while ago, we did one in Buxton and one in Mac, and what people forget is that the carbs are split into different categories. Every carb isn't the same. Some carbs, we can break it down into three, but I actually broke them down into four categories in the seminar that I did. Now, for starters, people forget that fruit and vegetables are carbs. They are carbohydrates, and they're the ones that we try to base all our meals around for our carb intake. I broke them down to four, the first one being a processed carbohydrate, so anything that is processed, so breads, cakes, pastas, anything that's been through a process, normally from a grain, breaking down and then put into what people think is a normal piece of food. So ask yourself, when you're eating it, when it says carbohydrates, is it a processed carbohydrate? So that's one of the worst ones that we don't really want to be eating. The second one is a starch, so things like root vegetables, rice, oats. Now these things are good post-workout, pre and post-workout if you are insulin sensitive. Now without getting too far into it, people base all their meals around lots of rice, eat porridge for breakfast, things like this, lots of potatoes. Now if you have an inactive lifestyle, then this will be stored as fat. Your body will produce it turn it into a sugar and store it as fat. But if you're having these post-workouts, can be quite good, which is what I would recommend for fat loss. Another one are sugars, so things like sweets and fizzy drinks and most thick-skinned fruits, but we're not going to worry too much about them at the moment because it's a different type of sugar. But any type of sugar, so break it down into anything, mainly things that are sugar, so sweets, etc. And the best ones, actually, are the ones that you want to base your food around, are the fibrous carbohydrates, because all your body needs from a carb is the fiber from it. It helps your body in many ways, shapes and forms. And you want to base your meals around them, so the fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates, and people forget that. So for my recommendation for fat loss is removing all the processed carbohydrates in your diet, the starches, having them pre and post workouts, and the sugars, completely removing them as well, and basing your meals around the fibrous carbohydrates.
Cool. One thing we sometimes get people saying to us, Matt, especially when they first start, they haven't quite got their heads around this, is they might go, right, that's it, okay, I'm looking to lose weight, no carbs for me. What would you say in response to someone that said something like that?
Well, that's the perception of that people think that bread and pasta are the only carbs in the world, and again, when you break it down to one of them four categories, they're the ones that people eat most. They'll eat cereals for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, pasta for tea. So when we say that they are some of the worst things for fat loss, they think they're cutting out all their carbs. When you think you got to replace them, so in the morning I want you to have mushrooms with your breakfast rather than having a cereal. At lunchtime I want you to have some salad and some vegetables with your meal rather than a sandwich. And the same thing for the tea. All you're doing is changing the type of carbohydrate you're having, not removing the carb. So it's people's conception that the carb is only the processed carbs that we come. But when you look at the other three categories, there are lots of different carbohydrates.
It's ultimately all about getting the balance, isn't it? You want to get a balance of proteins and carbs and fats, and then remove the ones that are just fundamentally bad for you. So again, Matt, just what would you say to people? Because you sometimes have people say, well, if I don't have my grains, my cereals, etc., how do I get my fibre? What would you say to them?
Well, by the time the grains have fibre in, don't get me wrong, when they're in a field and they're grown and they're alive, they have lots of fibre. By the time they've been mushed around and gone through a process and turned into whatever the hell they've been turned into, there's no fibre left. If there's any, there's an extremely small amount. But if you're eating, a vegetable, or whether it be fresh or frozen, some of the good brand frozen ones have very high nutrients in as well. They're the fibre, they're the plant sterols that you want to really eat. They're the ones that have got high amounts of fibre. So to get high fibre, you want to be eating in fresh or good frozen vegetables.
We managed to have sufficient fibre for millions of years of evolution before we developed the processes that we did to make your breads and your pastas. No one's ever short of fibre before bread and pasta existed. And also, exactly like Matt said there, that by the time it actually gets to your plate and into your stomach, the vast majority of the fibre and things like that have actually denatured, it's died. Believe it or not, it's perfectly legal to advertise the fibre content and other nutritional content of the source ingredients of a foodstuff. So when you read on a packet that it contains X amount of fibre, that isn't necessarily how much fibre is in that thing in front of you. It might be the total amount of fibre was in the original ingredients. So bread, pasta, etc., I don't consider to be a good source of fibre. I consider them to be a pretty rubbish source of fibre. Your quality veg that I mentioned there before is a much better source, and it's generally much better for you. Right, guys, it's time for Thing of the Week. Now, Matt, you had a return to form the last couple of weeks. Have you got a Thing of the Week jingle for us?
Well, I think we should go for a Christmas theme this time. So let's do a Father Christmas-based one.
Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. It's the Guaranteed Fitness Thing of the Week.
That's pretty good, mate. You'd make a good Santa, I think.
Oh, yeah. Got the jobs here.
Yeah, nice one. Right, this week's thing, Matt, I haven't quite decided what it's going to be, but we've had a lot of people contact us over the last week or so who've missed out on our January 28-day body transformation, the last trial we're going to do, because after that we're going to be full and it's going to be one in, one out. They're saying that they're going to get started in February, or they're going to apply anyway for February, but that's a bit of a wait for them for now. So have you got anything useful we can give these people who want to start changing their lives in January but won't be able to come and work with us till at least February?
Well, the main thing is that we need to kind of talk to them a little bit. So maybe if you could get on the Skype call with me, and I can have 20 minutes on a Skype call, they can tell me, what they're struggling with and what they want to achieve, and I can give them, the best advice I can give you for, say, 20 minutes on a Skype call. So probably the best way is to email me or John to book in for the Skype call. If you could email me at matt, M-A-T-T, at guaranteefitness.co.uk, and John, J-O-N, at guaranteefitness.co.uk. And just drop us an email, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll try and get on the phone with you.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so this interview is with a lady called Janette Hull. Janette is one of our ninjas over at Guaranteed Fitness Macclesfield. She started with us when we opened the club in September of last year and has been going strong ever since. As we've mentioned before in the different podcasts, we're trying to get lots of different viewpoints and different people in different situations on the podcast. So you guys listening at home will all get different things from it. So, Janette is, I'll let Janette introduce herself.
Hi, yes, I'm Janette, I'm 57 and I'm a relatively keen cyclist. I'm a fair weather cyclist, it's fair to say. And I hope that the 57-year-old women out there who are menopausal will get something out of this podcast.
Awesome, Janette. So you started in September last year, didn't you? Is that
That's
right?
That's
excellent.
right.
And you'd known Matt before that, hadn't you, from working at DW?
Yeah, Matt had helped me over 2 winters to get ready for the cycling season in the summer.
Cool, good stuff. So when you first started Guaranteed Fitness, what was the main thing you were looking to change in your life, would you say?
I think the main thing was my waist measurement, because I'd been reading in various health magazines and on the internet that it's not healthy for a woman to have a waist measurement of 34 and above. And my waist was 34, being a menopausal woman. Mm-hmm. So, and I thought, well, I don't want to be storing up potentially heart disease problems for the future. So that was one of my main motivators for coming and really getting into the paleo diet. And I'm pleased to say that my waist measurement is now 28.5 inches.
Nice. Awesome, that's an amazing result. So you mentioned there about your diet, basically what you eat there. So run us through, what was your normal daily food consumption before we met you?
Before I met you, I would say I was probably eating cereal or porridge for breakfast, probably a sandwich for lunch, and then an evening meal which was probably had potatoes or rice in it with meat and veg. So probably, and then maybe lots of chocolate and crisps and things like that.
Cool. And what sort of changes have you made since then?
Oh, very radical changes. I now have nuts and raisins and banana for breakfast. That's more for convenience really, because I tend to come to the 10 o'clock session, so it's nice and light, but gives me obviously a reasonable balance of fat, protein and carbohydrate before the session. And then lunch will probably be an omelette with salad, or maybe tuna and salad. And then supper will be a mixture of meat and 2 veg, or fish and 2 veg, and then a bit of fruit maybe as a snack.
Cool. Some good changes you made there. A couple of points to go back to you made there. First one, the diet you described that you had before was pretty much what 99% of the Western population eat. And unfortunately, it's pretty much what's recommended to us by our government. And really one of the main reasons Matt and I started Guaranteed Fitness, because the problems that were meant to be resolved by these changes the government made have got exponentially worse. Since 1977, when they introduced the new dietary guidelines, obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, etc. have all gone through the roof. They've skyrocketed. So just from that alone, it seems pretty obvious that the normal dietary recommendations aren't working. So that's why we tried to put something new in. Another term you mentioned there was paleo, for those guys that haven't heard that before. Paleo isn't actually a term we use all that much anymore. We did when we first initially launched Guaranteed Fitness, and basically the concept of paleo eating is just eating natural foods that we evolved on for millions of years. But we did find using that term lost people a little bit sometimes. People might Google it, and there are quite extreme versions of paleo, and sometimes people would find them. They find people who don't eat, for example, carrots, because they're not native to our country, and be switched off by that. And also they'd get friends and family members sort of arguing against the concept, because if you look at what we actually ate when we were cavemen, we also ate rats and things like that. So they'd make strange arguments that, well, why don't you eat rats? So the term we've actually gone to recently, for those that haven't heard, is JERF, which stands for Just Eat Real Food. It's the same basic concept, but it's inarguable. That's the real reason we've gone for it. So if anyone thinks that they shouldn't be just eating real food and on a balanced diet, as we mentioned before, with about a third of energy from protein, a third from fat and a third from carbs, if they disagree with that, what they're basically saying is, I think you should eat more processed food, and I think you should have either a high carb, a high fat or a high protein diet, which that works so much better. People get that, and hopefully you guys at home who haven't heard any of these concepts before, just the idea of eating natural healthy foods on a natural healthy balance that we've evolved on for millions of years, it just makes it a bit of a no-brainer really. Cool, so that's obviously what you've changed eating-wise, Janet. Exercise-wise, what's your life like now compared to what it was a few years ago?
Well, that was another goal of mine, to actually try and get exercise to be more of a habit, because I wasn't particularly good at it. My husband Jeff, he's very good at exercising. That is just part of what he does. If he hasn't been out for a run for 2 days, he starts getting weird and wonderful symptoms. But I wasn't like that. Whereas now I would say that I probably exercise 5 times a week. So I have 2 days where I don't do any exercise, say a Friday or a Sunday. But the rest of the time I'm down here at Guaranteed Fitness, especially during the winter, or if it's a nice day in sort of spring and summer, then I'll be out on my bike. But yeah.
Cool. That's one thing I definitely like to see in people's lives change. And not necessarily just the people that work with us, but just in general, when people find an exercise choice that they enjoy and that they want to do and they stick with, rather than it being something, generally in the past they've tried things they've had to make themselves do. As you mentioned there, Jeff, he loves his running, doesn't he? And this weekend, actually, we were all involved in a 5K Santa Dash to help raise money for a local charity. And I'm using the excuse that I was running with my 7-year-old nephew and had to run at his pace, but Jeff absolutely left me lying. He sped away from me at the start line, and Jeff's got over 20 years on me.
Jeff had 5 laps on me because I was there for moral support.
Matt was hungover. Matt had been out on Saturday night and was hungover and just there for moral support.
At least you were there.
At least I was there, that's the main thing, yes. So Janet, with the training that you do now, you say you do some cycling outside of Guaranteed Fitness. What are the kind of the things that you like about the training that we do in here?
Oh, well, I think it's fair to say that the exercises that help the thighs probably pretty good for cycling. I also like, Matt, that when I'm struggling at an exercise, you'll come along and you'll go, just think of that hill, Janette, and it just gets me up, gets me going again. And because Matt's worked with me, as we've said earlier, to help me get ready for my cycling season. And when Jeff and I first moved up here, we weren't ready for the hills around Macclesfield at all. And I'm so glad that we found Matt, who was able to help us, and certainly at Guaranteed Fitness. So it's not only the exercises for my legs, but also my core as well. Because one of my goals, I think, for next year, 2014, is going to be to cycle 100 miles in a day.
Wow.
I've done 76 miles in a day. But I've never done 100, so and I'm going to need my core to be strong for that, so that I can maintain the position on the bike.
Cool. Well, a couple of great points there. I say this in every episode. We don't want this podcast to be come and join Guaranteed Fitness. We want it to be useful content in there for anyone and everyone who's listening, wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing. So first thing I'd say there is, whatever you're looking to do, try and pick something that has a real world crossover for you. So it's great to lose body fat and look better or what have you, but most of us want to improve our ability to do something as well, whether that be cycle or walk to work without getting so out of puff, play with the kids for longer, sleep better. You want to look for an exercise option that supports your real world physical goals as well. And the second bit Janet mentioned there was about the support. She mentioned about Matt encouraging in sessions. Unless you're one of the 5% of the population for whom the gym works, where basically renting access to equipment and doing everything else yourself works for you long term, then you want to look for something that has that level of support that works for you. Again, no right or wrong. It might be having regular face-to-face contact with someone down at a facility of some sort. It might be some sort of online support, phone support. But if you're not one of that 5%, then you want to look at an option that has some sort of support system built in to enable you to get past your sticking points and achieve your goals. Another point you mentioned, Janet, is obviously being 57 and menopausal. That's a different situation to what the previous people we've interviewed on the podcast are facing and what have you. What's been your experience of going through that situation?
I think the biggest problem for me, apart from the hot flushes, has been bloating and excess stuff around my middle. And I think certainly a mixture of the exercise and eating healthy food has helped tremendously. I know now if I eat wheat, anything, bread, cake, a biscuit, it will just go straight to my waistline, and it's just not worth it. So I think that's been probably one of the biggest benefits of actually coming here. It's definitely helped my waistline, because as I said earlier, I was really concerned about how big my waist was, and I know that that's part of being menopausal. That's just where it goes. So I would urge people to try and give up the wheat, because it worked for me, definitely.
Again, a couple of great points you made there, Janet. The first one there was about things just not being worth it. And an expression that I often use, and I've written an article, some of you may have read it, is the expression cake or slim. Because in the way we're brought up in our society and the mindsets we've all got, we're so used to basically wanting to have everything and feeling it's unfair if someone else can have these things. So in a lot of cases, when people accept that it's a choice between being slim or healthy or fit or whatever they're wanting and certain foods, so cake or slim basically, I'm using cake as a catch-all term for anything unhealthy there, it just becomes a bit of a no-brainer. When you really truly accept in your mind that it's, I can eat this thing or I can be slim and happy and fit and healthy, it's a really obvious choice. You mentioned as well, Janet, obviously being 57 and menopausal there. When people first start with us, we find it's very easy for people to have justifications as to why something won't work for them, and that's human nature. Matt and myself find ourselves doing it occasionally with other stuff, justifying to ourselves why it can't work, it's not for us, etc. Justification we do sometimes hear from people is that they're too old. People 10, 15 years younger than yourself who actually already consider themselves too old to change their lives, to take up regular exercise, etc. What would you say to people in that particular situation, Janette?
I would say you're never too old to exercise. As I said earlier, I didn't have exercise as part of my routine. I did it occasionally, maybe once, twice a week, and I always felt good afterwards. And I think just realising the benefit of exercise, and it's never too late to change. It's just never too late to change. So I would say to people, just give it a go. Just sample it, even if it's only for a month. And if you can stick it out for a month, then can't you stick it out for 6 weeks? And then can't you stick it out for 8 weeks? Just give it a go.
Another great point you made there, Janet, is people often, when they take on something new, set themselves too long an expectation. So they might think, right, I need to do this for a year or 2 or 5. I'm not sure if I can commit to that, and therefore don't actually take that first step. Now, when you try something for a month and successfully achieve it, chances are you're going to continue. Some of you may have seen the advert for giving up smoking that says if you do it for 28 days, you're 5 times more likely to continue. So if you want to make some changes in your life, it may actually take a long time frame, but initially give yourself a target of I'll do a week or 2 weeks or a month. When you've achieved that, hopefully that habit will have been formed and you can roll on to continue for the amount of time that you'll need to get where you want to get to.
I also liked your seminar on habit changing as well. That was really good, and I've used that just to help me curtail the amount of alcohol that I drink, because that was also another worry of mine. John did this fantastic seminar on how to control your habits or change your habits, and I also feel that it's not just giving up bad habits, the seminar that John did, it's also helping you to create new habits as well. That could be one way of getting exercise into your life, or helping you to give up cake or whatever it is that you feel that is a bad habit, or you want to create a new habit. And especially as New Year's resolutions are coming along, this could be, you might have to do it again, John.
Well, funnily enough, actually, we've got a webinar coming up now. I think it might actually have potentially happened by the time this podcast is released, but we'll obviously send it out on the mailing list about how to make and stick to lasting New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions aren't a fundamentally bad thing, it's just the way that we're taught and know how to set them, how to try and achieve them, that is really setting ourselves up for failure. So if you've missed that already, I'll include a link to that on the show notes where you can watch a recorded version of it. But we've actually just started putting together a list of webinars to do in the new year, just because they're going down so well and so popular. And we're actually going to do a webinar at some point in January on helping people change habits. Basically that workshop we did down here at Guaranteed Fitness, we're going to do an online version on the webinar. Just to quickly run you guys through the basic concept though, because you might want to be getting cracking with some of that sort of stuff now. The workshop we did there was really breaking a habit down into its 3 constituent parts. All habits consist of a cue, a routine, and a reward. A cue is what instigates that habit, so it might be you being in a certain position, a certain place, in a certain mood, somebody else doing something, there's some instigator to you starting that habit. So you walk past the fridge, your friend offers you one, it's that time of day, you're feeling sad. The routine is the thing you do, so it will be you reach into the fridge and you get out a bit of cake, you say yes thank you to your friend and take a biscuit, you crack open a bottle of wine, whatever it may be, it's the thing that you do. And the reward is the thing that you get out of it. So whether it's the feeling better, feeling like you've achieved something, there'll be some reward that you feel you're getting out of it, rightly or wrongly. And as Janette said there, it's to change your habits, you don't just want to try and stop doing them, because that will leave a cake or wine or whatever shaped hole in your life. It's about developing new habits that replace them. So what you can do is when you have the same cue, you can develop a new routine and reward that go with it. And the key thing there is to have a reward. If you try and replace an old habit with a new one where there's no reward, so basically if the old habit is doing something, the new habit is not doing it and not getting the reward, then it's very hard to stick to. you need to feel that you're getting something out of this habit, whatever that may be, for you to want to stick to it. So, look at the cues that you've got, the things that happen that make you do your habits. Try and decide on a new routine that you can follow, whether it be instead of having that glass of wine, you call a friend, you message somebody, you do some new routine, even if it's just not doing the original thing, or going for a walk or what have you. But make sure you stick a reward on the end. If the thing itself doesn't provide you with rewards, if you don't necessarily enjoy the not doing the thing or the thing that you're going to do, attach a reward to it. It might be something that you're going to do anyway. So it might be that you decide every time you successfully complete your new habit, you'll have 5 minutes of watching your favourite TV programme. So if you successfully complete it 6 times over the course of the day, when you get home that night you can watch EastEnders. It might be that if you successfully complete your habit, you decide to go on a bonus date night with the other half, or buy yourself that new bag or shirt or shoes or what have you. But there should be a reward associated to your new habit so that you want to continue doing it. So just recap there, look at the cues and the routines and the rewards you have with your existing habits, and try and decide on and implement a new routine and a new reward that goes with that cue to replace the old habit, so you're not just leaving a cake or wine-shaped hole in your life. Cool, right, we've gone through some awesome stuff there, Janet. So hopefully you guys listening at home again will have got some good ideas, a few things you can implement in your life. Hopefully, as Janet said, if there's any 57 approximately year-old ladies out there, it makes you realise that you can do it. There's nothing holding you back. You know, as life goes on, things change, and some things might get harder, some things might get easier, but nothing becomes impossible. It's ultimately up to you to decide that you want to do those things and to put things into place so that they happen. So wicked, Janet, thanks for your time. We appreciate you coming down.
You're very welcome, thank you.
And we'll see you next week, guys. Okay guys, great interview there with Janette. Hopefully, whatever age you are, whether or not you're menopausal, etc., you've still got some useful content, some ideas on there, you know, how to change your habits and so on. We'll get that habit changing webinar sorted out for at some point in January, so just keep your eyes peeled for that. So quick recap there. We had firstly, the question for this week was from Tony at Mac about carbs. Matt explained the difference between the different types of carbs, which ones are good for you, which ones are less good, and really about getting that balance there. We then did this week's thing of the week, which is a free Skype call for any of you guys that either, if you're not in or around Buxton and Mac and therefore don't have any access to us, or if you're not able to apply to get started with us until at least February, then you can email us on either John or Matt at guaranteedfitness.co.uk and we'll arrange a Skype call with you. That's it for today though, guys. So if you're listening to this before Christmas, I hope you have a fantastic time. Whatever happens over Christmas, just relax and enjoy it. We've mentioned many times before that if there's one thing that's worse than eating rubbish and drinking loads, it's eating rubbish and drinking loads whilst stressing about it. So if you're going to be in a situation where there's nothing you can do about it, just chill out, have a great time, and we will see you soon, guys.
Thank you for listening to John and Matt talk nonsense today. See you next time, dudes.